What's your take on this whole issue of the veto, the amnesty, and sentencing?
Yes, Andrea Gonçalves, we who are on the right, we think that the sentences for that event on January 8th are very harsh, especially when we take into consideration what really happened there. For us, it wasn't all that it was made out to be, no. And giving, for example, 20 years in prison to the people who were there, for us, is completely wrong. It's a lot, even when we compare the sentences we have for other crimes that are much closer to us. How can someone who steals, who has some convictions for homicide and so on, get a lighter sentence than those people who were there, at most, as a protest maybe? Because for us, a coup wasn't even close to happening there.
So, do you think the federal police, the prosecutor general's office, and the Supreme Court are wrong?
Most of the time, yes. In some cases, I think there was an exaggeration, there was an excess. Maybe going in and being in that situation put everyone there at risk, for sure. But giving 27 years in prison to those who were there is really an exaggeration, and it really needs to be reviewed. I think there was vandalism, I think there was destruction. That definitely needs to be analyzed and punished as it should be. But not as an attempted coup, because honestly, that was nowhere close to happening. So for us, the sentencing should be evaluated more carefully, and a lighter sentence for those events would be very welcome.
Yes, I understand. So do you think those people went there because, here's the thing, the one who filed the complaint was the prosecutor general. The federal police investigated, and then the prosecutor general filed the complaint based on the criminal offenses defined by law, based on what is established by law, and understood that what happened there was an attempted coup, that they wanted to overthrow a legitimately elected government. And according to Brazilian law, even if you don't agree, Brazilian law says that this is an attempted coup because you are trying to remove from power the person who was elected. So much so that the prosecutor general understood it that way, and the prosecutor general then filed charges in that regard. And the Supreme Federal Court, with the evidence gathered by the federal police, convicted those people according to Brazilian law. So I think that perhaps, unfortunately, some people were indeed misled there. Many of the people there were misled. There were people who thought they were going there for a prayer, for a meeting, and it turned into an invasion.
Or maybe those people didn't expect all that to happen. The invasion, entering the Congress like that, to me, is completely wrong. A prototype. The external context there, where it was happening.
Okay, but don't you think those people were used and manipulated literally like cattle for that situation?
I think there was definitely an exaggeration.
In terms of legislation, what do you think?
Not only legislatively, but also regarding events at that time.
That wasn't just a protest. It was an invasion of the seats of the three branches of government. Yes, it was a mistake.
But while they were outside, I agree it was a protest. And probably before all that vandalism and destruction happened, all of that was wrong. But before, it was nothing even close to a coup.
It's interesting, Michel, because you talk about vandalism and destruction.
Yes.
But you don't talk about the volitional element, the teleological element, which is the purpose of that act. Because the penal code takes into account what your objective is when you commit a crime. Those people, when they vandalized, when they destroyed things, what was their objective?
To express perhaps a feeling of indignation that may have been taken to an extreme.
It was common knowledge, Michel, that they did not accept Lula's victory and that they did not accept that Lula became president. The intent behind the act was to overthrow a legitimately elected government.
That's practically impossible, Andrea Gonçalves.
No. But what did they want? What was their goal?
They wouldn't be able to.
In fact, what was their goal?
A protest.
Michel, we protest. We go to an avenue, go to a street, and hold a protest. You don't go in vandalizing, destroying everything. Shouting Article 142 military dictatorship. Where are the military? Cut off Alexandre de Moraes' head. Their own scheme there. Kill Lula, kill Alexandre de Moraes. Do you understand?
Yes.
I understand. I understand that the act itself would have been difficult to bring to completion.
It would certainly be impossible.
I understand, but there was an attempt. Do you understand?
Yes, Andrea Gonçalves.
There was an attempt. What didn't happen was the completion. It was the unsuitability of the object, you know? But there was an attempt.
Look, do you really think those people in the situation they were in, some families, some elderly people, with no weapons at all, could overthrow an elected government? That's impossible. Unless we agree that all the security around the federal government there was extremely incompetent. Because in that case, if you assure me, all the security, the whole apparatus, all the forces that were involved there, of protection, of security, and that guarantee the democratic constitutional order, that all of them are extremely incompetent to the point that a few unarmed people can overthrow an elected government.
That's impossible. They didn't succeed.
And they wouldn't be able to do it at all.
But they tried.
They didn't try to overthrow a government.
They tried. They tried. In fact, many believe that if they took to the streets and did what they did, many believed that the army could take the lead. It's possible. And I actually believe it too. Some generals are in prison, and an admiral received a 24-year sentence. Braga Neto got 26 years in jail. They were behind all of this, Michelle. That's public knowledge. They were behind it as the masterminds and leaders of this whole scheme. And unfortunately, this actually pains me. People were led to that situation, and it's so much. But there's a catch. The justice system imposed harsher sentences on this group, which not without reason was called the key group. Now that they tried, they did try, but they didn't succeed. And many believed that if they did what they did, the army, maybe a group could show up there and join in that coup frenzy.
Andrea Gonçalves, I'll try an exercise here to improve our chances. Let's suppose I'm an amateur, someone who practices a sport and thinks I'm really good at it. I don't know, maybe table tennis. I might want to be a good amateur by practicing this sport, table tennis. And I might think that I could beat an Olympic athlete in table tennis. Could I think that?
Uh-huh.
Will I be able to? I won't be able to. There's no way this could be a possible situation unless it's the only possibility. Hugo Calderano, who is our Brazilian and practices this sport a lot, has a really good reach, making him one of the top 5 in the world. The only possibility for me to beat him is if he lets me, if he has some kind of advantage, maybe hidden, concealed there in this situation of his defeat. Without that, it's impossible for that person or people to pull off a coup. There's no way, unless there's some exclusive involvement from some other authority in the middle of it.
Without that,
There's no way it can happen, Andrea Gonçalves.
and what would that be?
That's why I'm telling you the sentence really is excessive. You have to agree that they should be punished for what they did, and not for whatever exaggerated charges may be piled on them for political gain, at least from where we're watching this from the outside. Why? This happened on January 8, 2023. We are in 2026, and the federal government still uses this event for political gain to this day.
Yes, and they will use it for the rest of their lives? This situation is a milestone in our history. Now, what would it mean to let them win?
Let them in. Because if the security forces were really capable and competent, those people wouldn't have even gotten in.
Michelle, imagine if the security forces had confronted those people in that situation. There would have been deaths. And if there had been deaths, who would have taken the blame? Lula?
But they need that ability to act. Maybe it would be like accusing these forces of incompetence, saying they can't do it.
And what if people had been killed?
They would need to act to prevent this.
Who would be held responsible?
Responsibility has to fall on the individual who did it. If there was any excess, he has to be punished too, doesn't he? But there was no excess or any action from the security forces that day.
There wasn't, exactly, so that a humanitarian disaster wouldn't happen, or so they could still benefit politically today, huh?
Or so they could gain politically even now.
Political gain is inherent to the situation. People took the risk of producing that result. No, there will always be, Michelle. That's part of history now, and it will always be remembered as an attempted coup by the far right.